Hello, welcome to Family Therapy Podcast. My name is George Chacha. In this episode, I will be talking about mental health and suicidal tendency. Mental health and suicidal tendency. The 31st of January 2021 will forever live in my memory. It is a date that I have no intention of wanting to forget. A tragedy struck my family. Out of father's instinct, at around 10:30 p.m., I walked out of the house feeling that all is not well. And there before me, on my favorite photo tree within my compound, my 24-year-old darling son hung dead. This was and will always be the most painful, the most tragic thing to ever happen to a parent. The date or the event that I witnessed sent so much shockwave that there is nothing that can cause more pain in me than what I saw on that date of 31st of January 2021. Mental health is a psychological wound. A wound where the victim is not aware that he or she has a wound or has a problem for that matter. And those who live with him or her are neither aware also of the psychological wound. All they can see are the behavioral changes happening to him or her. They can only see the unbecoming character, the unbecoming behavior, a rebellious child, a difficult child, but nobody is aware of the mental health or the psychological wound inside that child. I will not be using medical jargon or philosophical or scholarly terminologies. I will be using simple, plain description, common and easily understandable to the layman. Mental health can actually be seen from two perspectives. One, mental health stroke suicidal tendency, even though they are two different things, one leads to the other. Mental health can either be hereditary, meaning that one can be born with genetic makeup of the tendency, or it can be due to environmental factors. The incidents, the encounters, the traumatic events that may have happened in the life of that concerned child or person, they will all cascade and contribute to mental health. Again, another a little bit unfortunate circumstance is we have those who have mental health and are aware that they have mental health. In the course and line of my work, there are many young people and even elderly people who have called me to say that I have mental health. I realize I have a psychological problem in one field or the other. In many instances, we have been able to kind of discuss and even try to investigate to the root cause or the start of that problem. Those who know that, those who have the problem and they are aware that they have the problem. Then there are those who have the problem and do not know that they have the problem. But after a lengthy engagement and discussion, they come to accept and admit that indeed they have a mental health problem. The worst scenario is where one has mental health and strongly and vehemently refutes having mental health issues. This is the most difficult and the most challenging aspect of mental health, where one has a deep rooted psychological wound, yet he or she refuses or denies having the same, and will go to any length to blame the whole world for having the problem, rather than accept or see himself or herself as having the problem. Handling a person with this type of mental health, or someone who is in this state of mental health, is most challenging and most difficult and most painful. Ordinarily, we tend to see mental health, we tend to see the signs, the symptoms, the fruits. It's like when in peace studies we normally talk of the conflict tree, and the conflict tree will normally be explained through the roots. We have the leaves, the branches, the fruits, then we have the stem that supports the leaves, the branches, then we have the roots. And when we are talking about mental health in children, or even in any person, be it a child or an adult, we will only tend to see the leaves. We only see the fruits. In other words, we are only seeing the actions. We are only seeing the deeds of the victim, but we are not seeing the stem. We are not seeing the roots. The roots, of course, causes the fruits to flourish. The stem, of course, supports the branches and the fruits and the leaves, but we tend, unfortunately, to concentrate more on the leaves, more on the fruits, and ignore the roots. Children who have mental health will generally display various characteristics, and I'm going to enumerate or to list down the characteristics that will be the characteristics which will have a pointer or an indicator. There will be an indicator that your child could be having mental health or could be on the way to experiencing the same. Children who have mental health will always wear masks. Their identity outside the house is different from the identity they wear in the house, such that outside there they are vocal, talkative, and extraordinarily active in most cases, while inside the house they go on mute mode. Children who have mental health kind of withdraw from the rest of the children if he or she has siblings, and in most cases would prefer to be alone. Such a child will show quite notable resentment and even jealousy towards his or her siblings on a number of occasions, and such a child will be heard saying that he is not loved, he, like the others, he is discriminated, he is hated, it's like he doesn't belong to this family, and such a child becomes quite irritating to the parents. Such a child becomes almost a social misfit in the family, and if precaution is not taken, then the consequences, or rather the effects, will be increased. In other words, we will be tormenting this child even more. Children with mental health very often will talk of like, there's no hope in life. They don't see any value living. They feel like death is an alternative. They would often be heard saying that they are happy them that are dead, rather than fearing death. They wish that death would be their companion. Children with mental health normally would tend to withdraw from the family and sort of seek solace on social media. They will use their phones abnormally excessively, so that they spend quite a big proportion of their time on social media. It could be WhatsApp, it could be Facebook, or any other that kind of social media. Children with mental health would always prefer, rather than sitting with the family, would rather kind of withdraw to his or her room and be there, just talking to imaginary friends on social media, responding to this and that. Children with mental health, by and large, will often go without sleep. In the morning, you wake up your child to perform a family task, a responsibility, and this child doesn't want to wake up. This child seems to be rebelling against your directive. He or she seems to challenge your authority. He or she feels like you just don't understand. Let that child be, because chances that the child did not have a comfortable sleep are very high, since people with mental health issues have lack of sleep. The time when sleep is just creeping into your child at around 6, at around 7, that is the time you are waking up your child to perform family chore, to perform this, to perform that. And what you are doing is that you are in effect rubbing him the wrong way. You are in effect frustrating him and making him or her resent you even more. Children with mental health will always be tired because they didn't sleep in the night. They were awake the whole night. Either there was no sleep, or they were on social media throughout the night as way of passing time. And by the day when they want to sleep, you want them to perform a certain task that you have given them. Therefore, it is highly recommended that you become a little bit proactive. You identify the normal traits, the normal characters, those characters that are not normal, and then immediately start handling your child appropriately. Another characteristic with a child who has mental health, such a child is very easily irritated. With a very small issue, the child they're highly irritable. They would even go to the extent, even when being adults, to the extent of crying when agitated, when irritated. They go to the extent of crying, saying that they are hated, saying that they are not loved, saying that they are discriminated against. Children with mental health tend to lock themselves up because nothing is exciting, nothing is interesting. There are people who, even when you invite them to a social place, to take them for an outing, for kind of some excitement or some function, they would rather remain at home. They would rather want to stay alone. When you see this kind of trait, there is a very high possibility that this child is going through so much struggle internally, and it calls for your understanding, it calls for your help. Children who are going or experiencing mental health challenges, often you will realize that their profile photos in WhatsApp or in Facebook is scaring. Often such people, they put photos that represent violence, photos that represent pain, blood. They will put photos, even if it is their own photos. A child or a young person takes his or her photograph when he or she is angry. The child is depicting anger on his photo. The child is depicting violence. The child is depicting hatred, because people with mental health, they hate themselves. They hate the people around them. They hate everything about life. Children with mental health have to be watched keenly, because there is a possibility that they could be harboring suicidal tendency. If a child who has suicidal tendency threatens or even says that I will commit suicide, give it the seriousness it deserves, because chances of that child committing suicide are very high. Never downplay the threat from a child who has mental health and suicidal tendency. It is unfortunate that my son, on a number of occasions, expressed disgust at life. On a number of occasions, he talked of no point in living. On a number of occasions, he envisaged death as the better option. Unfortunately, many a time we, the parents, tend to kind of feel that we know our children too well. They are too smart. No, this child is too smart. That is an empty threat. He can't do that. Unfortunately, those are the very same children or people who will execute the suicide mission. There are things that we should do to people with mental health, and there are things that we must never do to people with mental health. The do's and the don'ts. To a child who has mental health and who has ever talked of suicide or to embrace death, you must never command, never direct. For instance, you may be having a house chore that you want to be done. You may be having an assignment, a family assignment that you want to be done. You shall not command, hey you, I want you to do this. Instead, be compassionate and talk to him or her. My son, my daughter, there is this job that I wanted done. Do you think you have time to do it? But if you find you're busy, it's okay. Don't worry. Just leave it there. You have given that child the authority to decide whether to do it or not to do it. Therefore, do not direct, command, or order a child with mental health to do, because what you will be doing, you will be alienating him or her even further from you, because chances of people or children with mental health hating their parents are very high. The child with mental health lives with you, calls you daddy, calls you mommy, but deep down his or her heart, he or she resents you, hates you with a passion, and has killed you 1,000,000 times over the year. A child who has mental health should never be corrected like you are correcting any other child. If your child who has mental health has engaged in a certain unacceptable behavior, the best thing to do to this child is to say, well, son, it is okay. If that's what you want, it's fine. Maybe you are a parent who doesn't like certain hairstyle. You are a parent who doesn't like certain dressing mode or dress code. And your child, those are the very things he wants. Let it be. Do not stop. Do not prohibit that child. Remember, A child with mental health is not in control of his action or his decision. He only needs understanding, and those things that that child is doing, he is only trying to kind of defend him or herself. In other words, they are defense mechanisms. Do not prohibit, do not prescribe any act or any behavior about your child who has mental health. Instead, smile at the child, hug the child, and if possible, kiss him or her on the forehead, and give him or her the reassurance that it shall be well. A child who has mental health needs to be handled with golden gloves. You shall not be strict or even raise a stick or a cane for that matter. You shall not raise your voice against this child. Whatever this child wants, if it is within your means or within your reach, go forth and do it. Maybe the child needs a particular phone, a particular laptop, and you can afford it. Get it for him or for her. And if not, if you are not unable, then explain your situation with love and sensitivity, because your answer could hasten this child towards his or her grave. Children with mental health are special. We must learn how to live with them because they will never learn how to live with us. They have found themselves in a situation, in a condition that is totally, where they feel like they are hated, like they have to survive, and the only way for them to survive is to hit back at you, to hit back at the family, to do the things that are contrary to the values of the family. Handle them with golden gloves. In any case, it is better to live with a child who has this unbecoming character than to live with him or her inside the grave. For the pain that this child will live will be too big to go away. Therefore, it's important to take into consideration the do's and the don'ts. So what should you do to the child? Once in a while, come and embrace. Like, for example, you have just come from work and you know your child has mental health. Walk up to that child, lay both your hands on the two shoulders, say a word of love, a word of encouragement, hug the child, give him or her a peck on the cheek or on the forehead, tell him or her how good or how best he is. Be there for him, for her. Go outside your way with your meager resources, if that's what you have, and take that child out. And once in a while, take the child out, telling him or her, I want to spoil you. Today I'm going to take you to a joint. I'm going to spoil you. It does not matter if you are born again and you don't drink. It does not matter if you are, for some religious reasons, there's things you don't subscribe to, but you do not know what your child subscribes to. His subscription may be very different from your subscription. You will come to that point where you are torn between saving your child or saving your faith. You will come to that point where you are torn between making a painful decision of giving your mentally your child with a mental health issue what he or she wants, or having it your way. And that's the point where, even though you are born again, you belong to that group of Christians who do not subscribe to alcohol, and you know very well that your son or your daughter takes alcohol. If you want to spoil him or her, then it might come to that point, and you know very well that's what he wants. Take him there. teach him from that environment. You may be forced to get him or her a bottle of beer, just one, and get an opportunity to tell him how much you love him or her, how much you care about him or her, and tell him the reason why you cannot give him or her more than one bottle of beer. Because drunkenness mixes people. You may win this child by becoming like him without becoming a drunkard, by becoming like him without becoming of the world. We will be faced with we will come to a difficult point where we have to make a choice between being wise and being religious and disciplinary. I have talked about the do's and the don'ts. The subject on mental health is sensitive and wide. I am open to your call. Maybe this is your first time to watch Family Therapy Podcast. I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. Subscribe and click the bell so that you may be getting periodic, frequent updates that will be coming every week. A number of episodes will be coming to you every week. Participate and be active in the debate. I thank you for those who are constantly sending me messages, congratulatory messages, thanking me, and maybe even asking me a question here and there. In this clip, there is my telephone number. Feel free to call. Feel free to WhatsApp me, and let's have a live, healthy debate. You are not just talking to a counselor. You are talking to a father who has experienced the pangs of suicide. A father who has experienced the biggest pain of mental health and suicide. Let's keep this dialogue moving. Otherwise, I thank you so much. And if you have liked this presentation, kindly, once again, click the like button, subscribe, click on the bell so that you may get updates every moment they pop up. And thank you. Let us keep this dialogue moving. The points that I have listed, of course, are not exhaustive. I leave this open to one-on-one conversation, either through inbox or through phone call, for you will be talking not just to a scholar on counseling and mental health, but to a victim and one who lost through the same. Thank you.